This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green. My guest today is Brian Glick with Revival Theater Company at Cedar Rapids. Welcome back, Brian.
Thanks for having me again.
Nice to see you. You have a pretty ambitious show opening up on November 17th. This is, I believe, the Eastern Iowa premiere of Evita, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's thrilling to premiere something in your corridor, and this is an ambitious show indeed. I mean, 70 people.
70 person, that's big.
That's big.
That is big.
Yeah.
Now, I think that a lot of people, they are familiar, know there is a musical called Evita, and might remember the movie with Madonna, but as we said, it hasn't been performed locally, so I'm guessing that many people really haven't ever seen it.
Right. They probably either know Madonna or Don't Cry for Me, or know that they've heard it, they don't know what it's from, though.
Right.
So... Evita has had a long history. It was on Broadway in the 70s with Patti LuPone and Mandy Patinkin, Broadway icons. And, it was in London's West End and toured and then had a revival, I think, somewhere in the late 80s or early 90s. And then the movie in the mid-90s with Madonna. And then recently in 2012 with Ricky Martin.
And it's, of course, the story of Eva Perón, who is the wife of Juan Perón, the dictator / president of Argentina. But Che Guevara also figures in the plot, which is interesting to me because I traveled to Cuba about a year ago and posed in front of his giant picture in Revolutionary Square.
Right. It's interesting because you have a story that's iconic and, for the most part, pretty accurate in terms of, what actually was going on at the time. But Che is, in terms of the Che character, yes, it's roughly based off Che Guevara, but it's not him that he's portraying. So it's sort of fictional, and he kind of, as a narrator, gets to lead the story however he wishes. And, he's an important part of the story because he questions everything that's going on. Are the actions that our political leaders talking about and saying they're going to do and are doing actually benefiting the people that they say will be benefiting from their power?
Now, is his involvement just a narrative device, or do we know that they had an acquaintance or a relationship?
No, a narrative device. In fact, he never has any physical connection. Even when he has this, Eva and Che had this waltz together, they do this waltz, but they never touch. So, he's kind of in his own world and helps us push the story along. And I think what's extremely relevant amongst many moments about the piece is, we watch what's going on in our political world, and we question it as well, and he brings that to the forefront, to sort of be a voice for those who don't have one.
We are taping this prior to the results of the election.
Until I voted today.
So, yes, if you're watching the video, you can see that Brian is wearing his I voted sticker.
That's right.
So when you chose this show, you knew it was going to be an election season, and actually I posed the same exact question last week to the Riverside Theater production of The Taming.
Right.
But did you ever realize that the political season would be so fatiguing when you were putting the show on?
No, and we choose our season and dates quite early on, and we knew we were going to do it in the fall time slot, but we did not realize it would be just a week after the election. So that holds even more weight than we initially had thought, and certainly we didn't know who would be our final, our two candidates. And it's interesting that we have a woman running for president, and you have this Eva Perón figure who's, you could say kind of falls in the same position of a woman in leadership, especially at a time when that was unheard of.
And chaotic, kind of like now.
Chaotic, absolutely. At the time, when Perón was nominated to be president, women couldn't even vote yet. So, very interesting perspectives on then and now, and a lot of similarities.
Well, as I said, most if not many people may not have ever seen the show before, so it'll be totally new.
Right.
Except, as you said, "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," which is one of the most performed and the most parodied songs in musical theater to come along in probably the last 30 years.
Right, as Amy Stoner says, who plays Eva, this is when I got to get right. This is if anything's got to be right in the show, this is it. Even from the moment the orchestra plays the first, few measures, it's like, oh, I know that sound.
How do you now? Of course, you're the stage director, not the music director, but how do you and Cameron coach someone through such an iconic performance that can that drawing the line between drama and self-parody. I mean, it's so fine on a song like that.
It's very fine. I think a lot of it stems from a lot of research on the actor's part and ours. There's quite a bit of footage of her speaking. So it's figuring out the mannerisms. She was very physical when she spoke, and getting that down and understanding her history and her points of views and what her words mean. So when we know the intent and the action, then when you put it together vocally, you sort of shape and mold around that. And of course, the what's written on the page musically.
And Amy's work in developing the character.
Exactly. So between the three of us, we bring each of that we each bring that to the table, and then find that middle ground of what in our particular production works best based off Amy and how she portrays it, and what we want to capsulize in that moment.
Well, one would consider "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina" to be the biggest, the climactic moment in the show. But now that you've had this chance to live with the script and have your actors on stage who are working through it, are there any other what are other lesser known moments, but maybe just as things that you have found just as impactful in the show?
Oh, I think the opening is quite powerful. I mean, you open up the show with her funeral, and a casket, and 3 million people attended her funeral. And in our production, because it's more in a concert format where we have the orchestra on stage and a choir, and then the leading players and singer dancers on stage, you have that impact from the sound and the visuals, and then we have projections across the back of the stage with her actual, funeral footage, and the people along the streets watching, and so it's visually extremely stimulating to see that. So that's a big moment. That's a powerful moment. And then certainly, just her journey going into Buenos Aires, and it's like we talk about how it's the equivalent of getting off the bus in Times Square of New York City. It's just like, I'm here, I'm gonna tackle the world, anything's possible. So I think there's lots of moments, and I think the tricky thing about this piece is it's an opera. It never stops moving. So that's been tricky for us. Is Amy leaves the stage once for one number in Act 2, and that's it. So it's trying to figure out those moments and how we shape them and mold them together and build that stamina.
It's Evita with Revival Theater Company, opening November 17th, and just 3 performances, correct?
17th, 18th, and 19th, all 3 at 7:30 p.m. And then they're all going to be performed at Sinclair Auditorium, which is at Coe College, which is the biggest house that we've been in. We're looking at 700 seats. So, but we feel confident we can fill that space, and this show being as epic as we like to say as it is, it's a great hall for us to be performing this piece in. Yeah. All
right. And if people want tickets, how do they get them?
Oh, there's lots of ways. So you can go to our website, which is revivaltheatercompany.com, go to ticketing, and that'll give you all the information you need. And we'll give you a direct link to our box office, which is artsiowa.com, which is through the Orchestra Iowa box office. Or you could go to the Orchestra Iowa box office in person and order them. So phone, online, and in person, multiple ways.
All right. Well, it is, as we said at the top, it's a major undertaking.
It is.
But sounds like you've got all the pieces in place for an unforgettable performance.
It's a thrilling show to have that many people involved. When you hear that score sung by 70 individuals, it's powerful. And the piece in itself is powerful, and it's a great opener to our 3rd season.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And have a great run.
Thank you.
Brian Glick from Revival Theater Company and the production of Evita, opening November 17th.